Two girls snuck into a cemetery at night. What they saw changed them forever. A flickering fire, a figure in the dark, and a smell so foul it made them run for their lives. But the truth they uncovered the next morning. Worse than their worst nightmare. Watch until the end. You'll never step foot in a graveyard after dark again. Under the cover of midnight, beneath a sky heavy with clouds and apathy, two souls, Rachel and Molly, drifted toward a place where the living had long since learned to keep their distance. What began as irony, a teenage mockery of gloom, had evolved into ritual. The cemetery was their sanctuary, their dark canvas. They wore black like armor, boots like anchors, and in the town's forgotten corner, they had claimed a graveyard hollow as their own. But no amount of eyeliner or adolescent boldness could prepare them for what would happen on that night. The night Rachel would later remember as the one where the dead were no longer the scariest thing lurking in that place. Molly had called just in time. Rachel was idle, restless, devoured by silence. She bounded out the front door and onto the stoop, her black trench coat clinging to her limbs like a second skin, waiting under the jaundiced glow of a porch light. The car emerged like a phantom from the street's darkness. It was just Molly. No Adam, no Chris, no backup. That detail prickled the edge of Rachel's spine. It was unspoken gospel in their group. Nobody goes to the cemetery alone, or in pairs. But Rachel brushed off her unease and slid into the passenger seat, trying not to look too wary when she asked if anyone else would join. Molly shrugged with a mischievous half-smile. No, just them. The others were busy or hungover. It would be fine, just like old times. They drove in silence toward the edge of town, toward that iron-gated maw that swallowed them whole every weekend. The wrought iron cemetery gate stood like a relic from some medieval past, a gaping jaw with rusted teeth. The car crept through it, headlights slicing the fog in thin lines. On the left, the sleeping university with its humming dormitories and indifferent students. On the right, a dark sprawl of residential houses whose lights flickered like stars dying out. But the girls didn't linger on either side. They went where they always did, deep into the cemetery's underbelly, where the land dipped between two hills, a place cloaked from the eyes of both the living and the dead. Molly parked at the dead end. The girls stepped out and descended the hill into their shadowed hideaway, illegal substance smoke curling around their faces as they sank into casual conversation. Boyfriends, arguments, plans, nothing, and yet everything. It was that kind of night, thick with invisible tension. A bonfire's scent crept into the air like a whisper. Not visible, not close, but unmistakable. Smoke and char. It laced the wind with something too pungent to be wood alone. The two girls exchanged glances, logic unraveling behind nervous laughter. They assumed, perhaps foolishly, that college kids were to blame, rebels with a six-pack and no sense of place. But logic never saved anyone. Their spot wasn't visible from the rest of the cemetery, a perfect hiding place unless someone else also knew it existed. Rachel mentioned the cops. Fires in the cemetery always brought the cops. Molly nodded, agreeing. They stood and began the climb back up the hill to leave. And then Rachel noticed something, a flicker of light, a sharp orange edge barely visible over the next hill. Just the tip of a flame licking at the night. They stopped and stared. Still too far to see anyone, but the fire was there. A real one, bigger than it should be. "Let's go look," Molly whispered, her eyes gleaming with a mix of curiosity and mischief. But Rachel hesitated. It didn't feel right. Why would college kids make a fire here, on the side of the cemetery farthest from campus? This was a no-man's land. Miles from the frat houses, the keg parties, the safe chaos of youth. The thought slithered through Rachel's brain. This wasn't a party. Still, intrigue tugged at her. They descended back down the hill, past their stone throne and guardian tree, and began climbing the opposite hill toward the fire. Then came the smell, a sudden wave of rot, acid and meat and death all at once. They gagged. Rachel clamped a hand over her face. The stench punched the air from her lungs. She turned to Molly, eyes wide. But before she could even say it, she knew. Whatever was burning wasn't wood. It was worse. Rachel's voice had pierced the silence. An accidental yelp. Too loud. Too risky. They froze, hoping they hadn't drawn attention. For a moment, nothing. Then Molly whispered, "Do we keep going?" Rachel shook her head. No, they had to leave. Now, whatever was happening beyond that hill was no drunken gathering. It was something feral, something unholy. They turned back, fast but not yet panicked. They passed the tree and rock, climbed the hill toward the car. But then Rachel turned just once, just to check. And she saw him, a man, standing at the top of the opposite hill, still as a statue. The fire silhouetted his body, tall and lean and terribly still. He was looking straight at them. No words, no movement, just watching. And it was then that dread turned into terror. They broke into a run, legs scraping against the tall grass, boots pounding like war drums. Molly fumbled for her keys as they reached the car. Rachel shrieked for her to hurry, her hands trembling as she locked the doors. In the rearview mirror, a shape surged over the hill. He was running now, descending fast, straight toward them. They slammed the car into motion and sped away, tires spitting gravel as they careened through the graveyard's winding path. Rachel glanced back and saw his head pop up above the ridge, watching them vanish. They didn't speak for miles. Not until the cemetery was a blur behind them, swallowed by trees and moonlight. Words wouldn't come. Adrenaline drowned language. Rachel could only sit there, her pulse vibrating through her skull, as her brain churned with one impossible question. What was that smell? Morning came with the scent of coffee and dread. Rachel sat across from her mother in the kitchen, a fragile silence suspended between them. Her mother chatted idly about work, oblivious. But then something shifted. Her mother blinked, her tone changed. "Rachel, did you hear what happened last night?" Rachel shook her head slowly. No. Her mother leaned in. A woman from her office building, someone she'd seen many times in the garage, had been adopted, taken from the parking lot, murdered, her body cremated at the cemetery. Time halted. The air thickened. Rachel's hands went cold. She knew then. The fire, the smell, the man, the realization shattered her. She spilled everything to her mother in a frenzied storm. Molly, the fire, the chase, the man on the hill. They had been there, 50 meters, that close, breathing the smoke of a human bonfire and laughing about their boyfriends. Her mother went pale. Her hands trembled as she insisted they go to the police. Rachel called Molly, her voice cracking as she recounted the truth. Molly listened in stunned silence, horror blooming in real time. They met at the station, two goth girls shaken to their core. The officers listened, scribbled notes, nodded grimly. But the details were few. A man in his 40s, average build, the fire, the stench, the chase. It wasn't much, but it was something. Then came the question that haunted them both. Did he see us? Did he recognize us? Would he come back? But within 2 days, the answer arrived. The life-taker was caught, spotted in the murdered woman's car. Arrested, he confessed. And just like that, the nightmare had a name. The man from the hill, the one whose silhouette still lingered in their nightmares, was behind bars. Justice, however grim, was served. But it never really ended for Rachel or Molly. They didn't return to the cemetery. Not once. The place they had claimed as theirs, the place of adolescent rebellion, had been tainted beyond repair. It had always been a realm of death, but now it bore the stench of true horror, of something darker than the goth costumes they wore, of something human and yet not. They had stood inches from evil. And for once, darkness wasn't romantic. It was real. It was alive. And it had chased them through the graves. So now tell us, what would you have done if you saw that fire? Would you have gone closer? Or would you have run sooner? Do you think they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or were they being watched long before that night? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're reading them all. And if this story sent a chill down your spine, don't forget to subscribe. More true darkness awaits.